Hello, everybody. This is John again from VETtoCEO and Folla Capital. And today, the guest on this video podcast is my good friend Rob Campbell from All About Blinds in Johnson City, Tennessee. How you doing today, Rob?
Good to see you again, John. Doing great.
Always good to see you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
So let's get right to it and kind of cut to the chase here. Can you briefly describe your company? And I know you've taken a couple of new things since, but just describe the company in general.
Yeah, it's a window fashions company or window covering, shutters, blinds, and shades. We sell those. I am a Hunter Douglas dealer. It's not a franchise. It was an existing company that I bought back in 2022. And you come into this company and you need shades for your house. I've got a variety of products I can sell you from different manufacturers and whatnot. And I custom order all these things. I measure your window and I buy the shade for that window. I order it, you pay me a deposit. I order it, it comes in and we install. So we have full service from sales to installation to service window fashions company. And that's about as simple as it gets.
Yeah. How long had the company been around before you bought it?
I think about 8 years. The original owners started off doing cleaning of blinds and then morphed into becoming a Hunter Douglas dealer, and we're pretty well established by the time I came along.
Cool. And your deal, I know, involved real estate too, right?
I did. Yeah. I bought the property. So I own the building and there's a big parking lot behind us that doesn't see a lot of use. So there's potential there, which was part of the plan.
Yeah, cool. So tell me about the few years you spent in the Army and your military background. What'd you do in the military?
Yeah. I was an infantry officer, paratrooper like you in the 82nd. I did 27 years. Army officer, rose to the rank of colonel, commanded all the way through the ranks, all the way up to a brigade command of nearly about 5,000 men and women in the 101st. Went in 1990, retired in 2016, and that began the journey of which brought me here today.
Yeah. So my next question, you're one of the few guests I have that are really qualified to answer this, but kind of what went through your mind as you thought about what to do next after you left the military? And then, in the context of that, what led you down the path that you're on now about buying a business?
And that's a great question. And if anyone listens to any part of this podcast, it's this thing right here, because I speak to veterans all the time. It's one of the things I do in my leadership is, and I want to connect with people that are transitioning. I wrote a book about it. When I retired in 2016, I knew what my core purpose and passion were, and that is to make a difference in the lives of others through optimistic leadership. I know that sounds very bumper stickerish, but I went through a weekend seminar while I was in uniform to kind of tease that out. Because what I discovered in that seminar were there were some older Army officers, general officers, sergeants major that got out and didn't really understand what that core purpose and passion was, because we were issued that in the Army. John, you're a tanker. Rob, you're an infantryman. Sarah, you're a mechanic. And that job passion misalignment, let's say, is trumped by being a part of a band of brothers and sisters. And so what these guys and gals were doing when they got out, they just kind of got lost in it. So I knew that to be my core purpose and passion. I had to kind of follow leadership and continue to serve as I did in the military. I just didn't know exactly how. And when I retired in 2016, I wrote a book on leadership in 2017, and that's where I had the business idea. Okay, I could sell this, speaking, coaching, teaching. Not a clue what I was doing in a private business. All right, I took the gateway drug, which is get a tax ID, a website, and a business card. Poof, I'm in business. And as you and Mike taught me, no, all I had was a hobby because I had 0 clients. So spring of 17, right? January of 18, I get my first client leadership, and I almost jumped off the ship a few times. It was a startup, and most of them fail. And anyway, I stuck with it, and it was okay. And I got a pension keeping me afloat. That certainly is a differential. But I really got interested and learned a bit more about this thing called business ownership and entrepreneurship. And it's where you and I crossed paths in Wilmington. And I learned about VETtoCEO, which really just took my aperture like this into exploring the different paths. Buying existing became really attractive to me for so many reasons, because of the time I had spent in the course talking to you and others that were involved that really highlighted for me the opportunities that were out there with existing businesses. And mind you, like you did, a startup, I wasn't getting a paycheck for a while. I knew in an existing business, I'd be cashing a check on day one. And that's where I started looking for an existing business and followed that path into All About Blinds. Now, one of the curses I think I have, and I'm not alone, many veterans do, I don't think I could work for somebody. It would be because I'm an expert on leadership. I've written about it. I speak about it. I coach on it. And I don't know that anyone would ever measure up. And it's not their fault. It's the environment. And so that is a challenge for me to be able to go take a job somewhere in an organization. And, I came from the military, which solved problems through leadership, which was serving a cause greater than itself. A business is there to make money. And my role would be to do that, to make someone else rich. Well, I didn't want to do that. That path just didn't attract me. And so entrepreneurship became the thing. I didn't know this when I retired, that that's the route I would take, but I stumbled into it. I'm thankful that I did, because I'm the captain of my own ship. I answer to nobody. Now there's a price to be paid for that. It's not a bed of roses. It's hard work, and I've learned the hard way. I know we'll talk about some of that. But that's what led me into entrepreneurship, guided by that core passion, because I now have 5 employees in my blinds biz and 4 over in painting, and I can invest in them. I can lead them. I can, make a difference in their lives. So that's fulfilling, and this provides that in spades. So there is passion alignment. Could be blinds, could be toilet paper, but it's people, rallied around a common cause and serving our community and all the things that the business helps me do. So long answer to a short question, but a very, very critical one, and a pivotal one for somebody that's considering this path.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said it. And I said it so well, because I've seen that as well with all the guys like you I've worked with. It really is. We yearn for that leadership responsibility again. It probably never matched what we had in the military, but we're damn good at it, and we kind of miss it, right? We don't want to work for someone that doesn't have it, because we want to probably choke them out every single day. But anyway, very cool. Thanks for that. And Rob, you have written a couple books on transition, so you're well renowned for that, and respect you for that. So let's talk about the path we went down, because I was along the way with you back then, if you do remember. But what met your expectations during that experience of buying the business, and more importantly, what didn't meet your expectations? Can you show a little light about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I had decided along the journey, leadership business plugging along, but it to me was more of a lifestyle business, I guess. It ebbs and flows, and it wasn't something I was going to scale and sell. It's Rob Campbell leadership. I can't sell that to somebody else. They're looking for me. So I started looking, and I was like, okay, what kind of business do I want? Well, I was looking at the trades, because I knew they were pretty recession proof, resilient. And that's the path I started going down. I looked at a few and really learned quite a bit in that space. And then I started reaching out to a broker when I moved up here to Johnson City, and found a broker that introduced me to All About Blinds. Hadn't considered a blinds business, but okay, why not? I guess to your question, I think the pressure, the nerves associated with it, I guess I expected that. But then also it was a bit of a surprise, because my brigade in the Army was never going out of business. I never lost an ounce of sleep over payroll. It was never going away, ever. This business I'm standing in right now could go away tomorrow. If the market responds as it does, or we don't perform, this can dry up and be gone. And so there was that risk equation that had a real dose of reality to it. Certainly I'd been to risky places, but that was real. The path to get there, January of 22, you back up 6 months at least. And that's what took me that long to kind of get through that. Now, part of that's my own doing, where I kind of paced myself a little bit ahead time. I wanted to see the business deeper. So I did some of that, but then I jumped into the SBA loan route, and I'm writing about this in my 4th book, but it was entertaining and frustrating all the same. Where it was like, I was just so used to being trusted with, people and resources and money. And now I'm in this space where there's none of that. You and I joked once about, well, I took my brigade to Afghanistan. Nobody stopped me and asked me for a credit check. Well,
Yeah.
but now, on Monday morning, I get this brand new friend in this SBA process with a brand new checklist that I got to fill out. And they're asking me about that check I wrote last week for $12, I mean, what in the world? And I think it was just the pain of bureaucracy to kind of get through that, where, it was a turnoff. I knew there was a greater good at the other end of that. But that awakened me quite a bit. I think the money side of the business was an awakening for me, or, something I certainly knew, a business has to make money, but I didn't have the depth of balance sheets and cash flow and what all that means, and how you kind of manage that stuff in a deeper sense. And you had advised me at the very beginning to get a lawyer and get an accountant. And I did. I found a wonderful accountant. I'm still with her, who spent some time with me for free, just walking me through what she had seen on the books and thinking through some stuff. And I was like, wow, I had no idea. So yeah, big learnings. Big learning to it.
Yeah. I knew you got a little frustrated because it took longer than you thought, right? And then it took some pushing to get everybody over kind of like a rugby scrum, right? You had to get everybody over the goal line.
I did.
And I don't want to lead the jury, but I did watch you do that. But could you kind of talk a bit about how you had to kind of take the baton at the end and lead everybody to a close?
Yeah. Yeah. So, brand new experience, right? I'd never been through this. And, I think I had 21 new friends. Right. So we went through the process like every Monday morning. So there was a new checklist and a new person in the mix. And it was just frustrating, asking a lot of the same questions. And the owner was getting frustrated with this too, because they wanted to close the deal, get it done before the new year. As it turns out, we couldn't. We just had to kind of, get through this. And so there was all that. I had to give blood and pee in a cup for a lady. I had to have an insurance policy to cover me for the bank to mitigate risk. I get that. It makes sense. But here I am in my own, future office, standing on a scale, getting blood drawn from me, paying a pump to make sure that I'm healthy enough to do this. And I'm like, what in the world? And so all of this rigor to go through this, and frustration, and going back and answering questions, and, this, that, and the other. We get to the final meeting to set up the closing date. And the lawyers are on the call. The bank is on the call. The previous owner is on there. I'm on there. And the bank pipes up and says, okay, when's the closing? And I'm thinking to myself, isn't that your question to answer? So I answered it for him. It's Friday at 9 a.m. And I knew that was not possible. And so, they came back, oh, whoa, wait a minute, this, that, and the other. Now, the bank was out of Florida. I'm in Tennessee. There's different laws here on things. So they weren't really, versed in Tennessee law. Thank God the lawyers, I caught them on a few things. And anyway, so we went through this call, and there was just all this back and forth. And I'm listening to them go back and forth between lawyer and bank. And then we get to the end of it, and one of the lawyers pipes up and says, this has been a really great call, a very productive call. And so I'm just fuming at this point. The Army colonel in me has just lost his mind. But I'm not flying off the handle. I'm just quiet, waiting. And then he says that, and then over to you, Rob. I said, okay, whatever the lawyer's name was, John, I'm glad you thought this was a fantastic call. I don't. And so I just unloaded on them to say, hey, this has just been a discovery learning process where it's like we figure out something new each week. And I was just very frustrated with the fact that I'm the one answering questions I shouldn't be. And just, the whole process. And it was that moment where I just had a chance to unload on them. It all turned out fine. It was just, but it was this very like non-military type scenario. Whereas so I'll be the one helping you, but I am on vacation next week I never heard that stuff in the Army. And so there'll be someone else and will answer the call. And I'm like, I don't care about your vacation. You know what I've just been through to get this thing done. And anyway, so that was like the culminating point, and frustrating, but in hindsight, it's entertaining. And then we got through it all and got it done, and off we went.
Yeah, I remember watching you from the bleachers and laughing, but it did take some decisiveness and some of that,
Or,
military vigor to get everybody to close. So that was good.
well,
But, related to that story, like looking back, and we do these for the dudes and dudettes that are just starting the journey now. What are a couple of jewels that you've learned that you wish you knew before, that you now know? Like anything come to mind in terms of, these one or two things are really the most important stuff in your opinion
yeah,
and experience?
yeah, there's a bunch. Look, I still don't know what I'm doing. I don't have this all figured out. People look at guys like us saying, wow, they're smart. They've got this thing. No, none of us are. You're figuring out Folla, you're doing experiments and shifting and adjusting. And that's what I'm doing too. And you told me this once, small business is about a series of experiments. You try something new and see if it works. I think the big ones that jump out for me, and some of this is personal. It's just Rob Campbell and who I am. I'd submit if you were buying all about blinds, you're much more astute with finance and numbers. You got an MBA. I think you would travel that path much easier than I do because it's not my thing. I'm not a details guy. And that's been an awakening for me. Like cash flow, easy to state, harder to understand, especially as it applies to your business. What do I need to have in the bank? What is that risk point where I get to a certain point? I know I got payroll coming up, but it's this much, and I've got this much in accounts receivables, and where's my expenses? Being able to see that real time was a big learning curve for me. And I worked with my bookkeeper to get a kind of a dashboard set up where I can see that now whenever I like. So cash flow was a big one, and how it applied to this business and what decisions I needed to make, what levers I needed to pull, what risk mitigators were out there. To manage that. At the end of the day, I have the finance meetings. I jump in and look at the numbers, but I know getting out of those, my job is just to bring in more sales because that will bring in more cash. And that's what I need to be doing each day. So that's where I focus my time. There was certainly a people aspect to it. I mean, I do believe that I know people well and lead them well, but these are not soldiers. They don't respond as soldiers do. They're not automatically loyal to the company. Many of them just are drawing a paycheck and looking for the benefits. And I get that. I really do. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're just not automatically going to buy into the system. They don't walk in the door with the Army values. They haven't written a blank check to their nation payable with their lives. They're just different. And so you've got to lead them differently that way. So I can't be as stern as I might. I don't have that legal authority, let's say. I mean, I am the boss, but that I used to have in the military. So that was a big learning curve for me and how to do that. And I think, just the whole process of selling and closing the deal or what needs to be laid out there and the language that goes with all that stuff. They won't give that to you in the military. I had to learn, a lot of that. So it's just been a big learning curve. And then one of the things I knew before I got here, because I learned it in my leadership business, is I'm not in the blinds business. I'm not in the leadership business. I'm not in the painting business because I own all three of those. I'm in the marketing business because I can be really good at this blind stuff. And we're very good at it. But if nobody knows about it, it doesn't matter. So I knew that coming in, maybe that wasn't a huge, but it was just interesting to see that in action and trying out different things and seeing what works and get better.
Yeah, I love the fact you brought that up because a lot of folks, especially in the academic approach to ETA, is, oh, you buy this business, it's been doing this for the last 10 years, and it's going to keep going like that right after you buy it, and you can chill out. That doesn't happen in the real world. And, I think the number one thing most entrepreneurs need to be is a marketer. So I'm glad you brought that up. Like sales and revenue can solve a lot of problems. So that clearly is a good story there. Now I know a couple of things that have happened in your business since you bought it, so I don't want to lead the jury again, but how's it been going since you closed the business? Kind of like what's gone right and what's been a challenge if it's something you haven't mentioned yet.
Well, a couple of things. It's a very resilient business. I say that because I've seen it now for several years, and there'll be months where, look, it's just dry. I mean, we're just not selling anything. I'm not talking necessarily about, Christmas or or maybe the holiday, but there are some months that for whatever reason, and I just can't put my thumb on this yet and why this is happening. All kinds of stuff out there in the economy and whatnot. Who knows? Nobody does. But just it's a resilient business. So if it slows down, I have things in place like a line of credit at the bank I can draw from in order to meet expenses because I have to do that. I just know that it's going to bounce back. That doesn't mean I wash my hands of it. We double down sometimes on going through our CRM and calling folks and bringing that business in. But it is very resilient. It ebbs and flows, but it's strong and it's solid. And Johnson City, they're moving here and they're building homes. So all the indicators are there that there's, future business for sure. I probably burned through cash too quick. And this is Colonel Rob Campbell, the brigade commander that was operating off of a blank check since 9/11. All right. Still in that mode, not completely ignorant, but I had a line of credit, not a line of credit. I had, extra cash when we do the SBA loan. What do they call that?
Working capital.
Exactly. So I worked that capital right down to zero. And so it taught me to say, hey man, you got to have some reserves out there. You got to have a QRF you can call on. And that for me right now is that line of credit. For me is that other business. For me, it's payroll where I can say, okay, no more overtime and roll that stuff back to control it better. And I get burned a few times on that early on where it was very, very tight. Certainly the cash flow lessons of being able to collect that check, but if you can't, having that backup plan because we've been in somewhere, well, the install didn't go good. So there's two that don't shit. And guess what? She ain't paying us. I expect her to. So we got to wait and get through all that. Marketing has been a big learning journey. I wouldn't say that I didn't necessarily know about it. Well, I needed to do it. It's just what works here in this area. I did billboards. They were very expensive. Didn't see anything from it. I did radio. Didn't see anything from it. I've just done TV only the last couple of weeks. Hadn't done that. Seen a lot from it. Okay, that works. Let's try that. And then the last thing is, just an understanding of the market. So when I bought All About Blinds, we were a Centurion dealer, which means I only sell 100 of this. I'm only selling Mercedes. If you come in and you want a Ford Focus, I don't sell those, right? Or Ford Explorer, just a lower level car that's less expensive. I didn't sell those. Well, I could operate off of that philosophy outside of Philadelphia or Charlotte or Raleigh, pick a major city. Hey, sorry, this is too expensive. Okay, thanks. Next. Not here. We certainly have that upper end market that's buying the Mercedes, but there's a lot of folks in here that want that basic Explorer or, Ford Edge or whatever. That's less expensive. I've got to service that market. So I came off of being a Centurion dealer, which allows me now to bring in other manufacturers where I can bring that cost savings to the customer. I didn't know it. I had to learn that the hard way going through and with different indicators like sticker shock, feedback I was getting. So that really taught me quite a bit about paying attention to.
What was that a good move? Has that worked for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely does because it's almost like the good, better, best options now I can provide. Hey, here's good, pretty cheap. Good quality, we'll install, here's better, a little more expensive, here's best. This is top of the line, the Mercedes. But I had to look.
Cool. I also know you dabbled in trying to get your veteran-owned status to move the company in a couple of different unique opportunities. Can you kind of talk about that?
I haven't done enough in that space. There is a veteran ready program in the state of Tennessee that I wouldn't say competed for, but signed up for it and got that designation. I haven't done the service disabled veteran owned designation, and I need to. I haven't done a lot of commercial work, government work, and I want to. So I'm moving in that direction as we speak, but I'm getting all those things in place. Now, I do absolutely champion the veteran owned business, especially in this area, very patriotic, loves its veterans. So I'm beating that drum all day long. There are other blinds dealers in town. They're not veteran owned. It's a competitive advantage I have of having that. So I do talk about that a lot. And as a service member, as a veteran, it's a bit of an out of body experience because I'm self-promoting, right? And I'm talking about my Bronze Stars. Well, if you and I were in active duty at Fort Bragg right now, we wouldn't be talking about that stuff. I wouldn't be self-promoting. I just wouldn't do any of that. So I do that now in private business, but I should. And people respect that. So I'm leveraging that. And it's not like I'm being cheap or deceitful. I'm going to deliver on what I say, and I do deliver. We've got amazing Google reviews that we work hard for. So yeah, those are among the many lessons.
Yeah, yeah, good. It's always a work in process too when it comes to that. But look, I have the luxury of working with a bunch of guys today in my day job that are buying businesses right now. So I always try to pass on some of the things you're talking about. But now that you have the stage, for all those listeners out there that might listen to this at any time in the future, what's the absolute best advice you can give to fellow military folks who are just starting out on the road or even just thinking about it?
Well, I say go for it, but go for it informed. Don't just barrel into a startup somewhere, because as you and I well know, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And if you do this ill-informed, I think you're going to make a mistake. Rob Campbell, buying All About Blinds in fall of 16 out of the military, was not as good as Rob Campbell in 2021 that bought All About Blinds and closed on it in January 22, because I had been down the road and learned quite a bit in the process, in large part because of you and Mike and VETtoCEO and what I had learned and experienced there, and the rigors of even just going to my own startup and that. And so, but I do believe, again, at the end of the day, for all the headaches, and there was one this morning that I won't share with you, but for all of that, I'm still the captain of my own ship. I still own my schedule. I'm making myself rich. This is an investment, and I will sell it someday. I'm always working with the exit in mind every single day. But I'll do that when I pick and choose. So the advice there is to really strongly consider this, because I think many of us, especially those senior people that have been in the military for a long time, it's going to be hard to work for somebody because they won't lead you well enough. And I've seen that in my leadership business. And this is a great way to be the captain of your own ship and make your own call. Know what you know what you don't know. There are absolute benefits, tangible benefits to being a veteran, a service member, and taking this path of entrepreneurship. My years in the military served me well every single day, but they also limit me sometimes because I didn't know money like I should have coming out of the military. There was never a dollar sign on any slide for anything we ever did in the Bastogne Brigade in the 101st. Now it's the first slide. Can we afford this? Do we have the cash flow for it? And it should be. It's a different mindset you got to be into. Try not to think. I had a discussion the other day with a Marine colonel. We talked for an hour and a half. It was wonderful. And we were talking about entrepreneurship as part of several things. And he was in the mindset, as I believe many are, that, well, I'm a colonel. I can only do these things. I can't stand in the bathtub of an old lady and measure her windows because I'm a colonel, right? I'm a brigade commander. No, you can't. And for what? Now that's okay. So you can do that. So consider that, let your ego down a little bit. Like I told him, I said, man, go buy a trucking company with 5 people on it. Just lead them well and take care of them like that little squad of yours and cash some checks and live a good life and be your own boss. Well, there's that, but you got to know what you don't know. And the money certainly is one. Risk is one. Look, in the military, we go through an extensive risk assessment. I mean, you and I both know airborne operations so well. Everything we did to prevent risk and injury right up to that point that we jumped out of a plane. Not the business world. I mean, often I'm gambling and just, being in the dark works and trying that experiment out. Certainly with some resilience, maybe a line of credit or cash flow behind me and proven performance, but try and do things out. And so you really got to watch that risk. And then the last thing is just know that you're going to be very alone in this enterprise. I do feel very isolated, and it used to be where I could reach out, touch my teammates left and right. Well, they're not there anymore. A banker's not coming for me at 2 a.m. So you really, truly are all alone. So find other veteran business owners. in the network like we have in VETtoCEO, things like that. We don't feel so isolated and we can learn from others, going down this path. But I would strongly recommend it. I think that people think they can't afford it. I took $60,000 out of my own savings to buy All About Blinds. It's a debt. My financial advisor told me not to, but now he says it was a smart call, and so
Yeah.
I did drum up some money, but there's all kinds of paths into this thing called business ownership. So learn more about it, think more about it, and take the plunge. I do it all over again. There are days that are just like, good Lord, I could just be working for somebody, come home at night, but I would have problems on that end of it too. I don't think I would be as happy.
Yeah, that's great stuff, man. And you continue to impress me as you continue to ride your horse for the last few years. And the challenges I've known you had, I haven't talked to you a lot about this lately, but given all the work I do with VETtoCEO and other veterans, the big aha moment I've had over the last year or so is I really, I've noticed that it's the reps we have in the military on making decisions. I think military service just compresses, just like working out and going to the gym, right? You got to put the reps in. And I think decision making that we make in the military, I see it with guys like you and my own experience and others I'm working with. Man, you could throw them in any environment. They're really good at making decisions, right? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you have any comment on that or any
Yeah,
personal experience there?
I do. I'm using that decision-making process every single day here. Um, Day one of All About Blinds, it was January, mind you, January 10th, I think it was. So it's Monday morning, and we're in the middle of a snowstorm in Tennessee. And I get a van stuck in the snow, and a customer helped dragging it out. Tommy's wearing shorts because he's diabetic, so he just and I got, I don't know, 3 or 4 other things happening. So I'm like, okay, let's problem solve, get through this, right? Where anybody else might have just crumbled at, with all that going on. And so, yeah, the problems get tossed at me daily. Even today, I've probably dealt with 3 or 4. And you just go at it with that problem solving mentality. And John, it will save the day. I mean, that's what we veterans, I believe, have going for us, is that we can problem solve to the best of them. And so, that's what it's about. One thing for me is looking forward. Like, I didn't start Rob Campbell Leadership with the exit in mind. I didn't know what that concept meant. This is what I did. I bought All About Blinds with the exit in mind. That doesn't mean I've got a mark on the calendar. I'm exiting. But what I do each day through problem solving and all these things I've shared is I keep us exit ready, I guess. Where if someone walked in here today and wanted to buy this business, well, what would they look at? They'd look at the books. They would look at the performance. They would look at everything. And I always want this to be sellable, which means it's a healthy business. It's functioning well, and it'll be sellable. And so when the time comes to do that, I can. And that's a mindset I took into this one for sure, is consider the exit. Maybe I never sell it. I hand it to a family member. That's all my decision. But it's the problem solving. It's the leadership stuff that we bring. It's, the risk analysis, all those things we're able to do. Like, I coach people in job interviews, veterans, you might hear something like, well, John, what a great resume. Thanks for your service, but you don't have any industry experience. Well, the response to that is, well, the verbs are the same. It's just the nouns that are different. Same applies in entrepreneurship. The verbs are the same. I'm in this company to lead, to coordinate, to build consensus across stakeholders, across my community, to problem solve, to everything, all the verbs. I can do that. I've done that 100-fold in my military career. I can learn the nouns of window fashion, inside mount, outside mount, room darkening, light filtering. I can learn all those nouns, and I have learned those nouns, and I do just fine with all. And so that's the benefit of being a veteran and stepping in entrepreneurship. You're very well equipped to do it. So, don't let the doubts or the misinformation get you. Listen to conversations like you and I are having right now, and then take that step.
That is solid advice, man. A great place to end this. But hey, thanks for your time, Rob. You're an inspiration to many for lots of reasons, and I appreciate you taking some time today to share your story.
Thanks, John. See you soon.
All right, buddy. Take care.